So here we are, 22 days away from potentially a national apocalypse. I don't say that and pass that along lightly. I think that a lot of us are looking at some of these polling numbers and realizing it could go. If you're a traditionalist, if you're a conservative or a Christian, that is maybe a traditionalist Christian conservative, that the outcome could be sad. We are. This morning, I made an analogy in my little pregame warm up on Facebook. I was telling the people who were viewing that today. We have a gaggle of cats. I think I've mentioned that before. It's like a cat colony that lives here out back of the radio station in the horse barn mainly, but they just gather from around the neighborhood, and we do a good job of trying to feed them and look after them. Sometimes we've gotten them spayed and neutered and done those things or gotten them adopted out. And this morning I had some chicken scraps that I brought in from home. And I threw those down when I was coming in this morning, and the cats gobbled those up. I go outside though, and I come in about 5, but I don't go outside and feed them until about 7:15 or 7:30, their regular breakfast, which probably, unless they don't hunt anymore. We've noticed that. So they'll sometimes be eating out of a dish, and there'll be a magpie standing a foot away, and they pay no attention to it. So they've lost their ability to hunt because we feed them every day, and yet they like to have children with multiple different fathers and expect that they're going to get that free meal all of the time. And so this morning I fed them some of the chicken. Now I also have been bringing them in some canned Friskies, some pate, because I have kitty cats that will not eat the pate. Speaking of people who get a free lunch and have become discerning, they will only eat the bits and the shreds. And I accidentally bought the pate a couple of weeks ago. But I figured, well, I'll bring in some of that for our kitty cats here and supplement their dry food just because the stuff will sit around my cabinet at home forever. Well, I noticed a day last week I mixed some of the wet food in with the dry food and fed them. And the kitty cats have figured out, the ones that live here at the radio station, how to go about picking clean the dry food and leaving it behind and still gobbling up the pate. This morning, after they ate the chicken, they turned up their nose at the pate. It's free. They don't work for it. And yet now they're saying, hey, dude, that chicken was pretty good. We want more. We're entitled because we were born. That's how things pretty much run in this country any longer, right? That's what we're dealing with, I think, on a growing basis. I saw a poll this morning, something along the lines of about 2 out of every 5 millennials. That's a group of young people, obviously, who are quite young, below age of 30 or in that range. About 2 out of 5 say they have no problem with communism. Most of them couldn't identify who Chairman Mao was. Most of them actually, they know what the best iPhone is, but they don't know a whole heck of a lot else. And a good number of them, a large proportion that were surveyed, believe that George W. Bush caused the deaths of more people than Joseph Stalin did. You wonder why we're in such dangerous times? You know who they're going to be voting for come Election Day. 10 minutes after 8 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Tomorrow morning, if it's published, there's going to be a bombshell on the editorial pages of the Times News, my expected weekly column, and I am going to share with people what the alternative universe is if we have a right-wing revolution in this country. Now, there's going to be a lot of angry liberals out there after they see it, but it can't be any worse than someone on the liberal side firebombing a Republican campaign headquarters over the course of the weekend in North Carolina, which happened. And yet mainstream media saying, well, it's all Donald Trump's fault. Oh, okay. So tomorrow, if someone goes and bombs the Black Lives Matter headquarters, will that be Black Lives Matter's fault? No, of course not. That'll be evil whitey. That'll be the racist bigots over on our side, right? That's how that'll be portrayed or that'll be sold. New York Post, a writer by the name of Michael Walsh, had this column yesterday. Now, this guy is a very well-known writer. He writes not just this newspaper column, but he's quite a well-known writer when it comes to books, magazine stories, and the like. He's one of the more successful writers in the country, and he has more of a conservative and traditionalist slant on things. Was writing this: Hillary Clinton has long believed that the personal is political, especially when political power can benefit her personality. Have you been tracking these WikiLeaks revelations that have been coming out? I mean, these are astounding. The fact that she wants a global government, or at least a government, she wants to turn the United States of America into North and South America with one government in this hemisphere. Knowing, of course, which party would get all of the votes, the party that feeds the cats out back. Right. Oh, I'll give it to you for free. It won't cost anything. The writer goes on to say the bigotry shown by her campaign aides is a hint of what's to come under a Hillary administration. Continuing pressure on Catholics to adapt to contemporary progressive social justice norms. Not that she's likely to put it so bluntly, especially during the campaign, that might alienate potential Catholic voters. Far beyond the Rio Grande, there's a potentially much wider electorate to appeal to when the time is right to admit it. Can I mention, too, as well, that way that her campaign was talking about Roman Catholics, mainly conservative Catholics, although Father Dwight Longnecker, who's probably at the moment one of the 5 best-known Catholic bloggers in the country, says that most younger Catholics turn out to be conservatives, unlike the ones that were coming up 40 years ago. So to call them conservative Catholics, you're actually talking about, unlike most of the millennials, this is a group that is very astute, probably knows what's going on in the world. Probably they know who Chairman Mao was. And so when Clinton's people criticize them, they're criticizing the large body of younger Catholics who are taking over that church in this country. When they said that they were going to infiltrate the church, in other words, plant people inside the churches who might not even be people of faith, but they were going to try to send people out essentially to claim, yes, we're Roman Catholic, to try to upend the church. Can you imagine what would happen if they were infiltrating, let's say, the Mormon church or the Presbyterian church or the Southern Baptist church? Should government, should people in politics in any case ever be trying to ruin these institutions by sending liberals in to pretend that they are Christians so that they can then change the direction of these churches? This is a very sinister group of people that we're dealing with here. The writer goes on to say, far beyond the Rio Grande, there's a potentially much wider electorate to appeal to when the time is right to admit it. That goes to her comments that were revealed in WikiLeaks about getting rid of our borders so she can be the president of both North and South America. And she said this, my dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders sometime in the future with energy that is as green and sustainable as we can get it, powering a growth and opportunity for every person in the hemisphere. As she said this during a speech where she was paid about $225,000 to a group of Wall Street guys who were thinking, oh, more cheap labor. We can keep them in poverty and pay them a penny a day. Oh, well, that'll be good for profits, won't it? And you Democrats out there, you buy that hook, line, and sinker. There's a reason we don't think that you have, well, that we think you have crap for brains. And I think it's fairly obvious when you hear something like that. And yet, was it Gloria Allred? She's the lawyer who's suing Donald Trump. Well, she's representing the women who claim Donald Trump was a little bit too frisky with them. Gloria Allred was, when she was brought up the fact that the Clintons' history with women is pretty, well, scurrilous is a good word for that. She said, yeah, but Hillary supports killing babies in their mommy's wombs. I'm in. That's all. So she's on board with Hillary because Hillary supports infanticide. This is the party of death. And you know, these people are going to continue that cult of death as long as they potentially can. Clinton's health problems. This comes from today's Washington Times. Among all the recent WikiLeaks email dumps, Edward Klein writes, perhaps the most important one of all has been overlooked by the mainstream media. Clinton's longtime political guru, a woman named Neera Tanden, it could be a guy, I guess, Neera, warned campaign manager John Podesta not to raise the question of primary opponent Bernie Sanders' health because then it would draw attention to Hillary's. And the writer says she suffers from cardiac arrhythmia. That's ultimately what killed Elvis Presley. The drugs probably fostered or you know, they pushed him over the edge, but that's what killed him at the age of 42. That's an abnormal heartbeat. She has a leaking heart valve. The writer says they have recommended that she considers having a valve replacement, but Hillary has refused because she doesn't want to risk the negative political fallout from stories about such a serious operation. In addition to the arrhythmia and leaking heart valve, Hillary suffers from chronic low blood pressure, insufficient blood flow, a tendency, and I'm losing my voice here for a moment. You would think with all the rain in the air that the allergens would be away, but apparently not. a tendency to form life-threatening blood clots and troubling side effects from her medications. Her doctors have prescribed Coumadin, a blood thinner, and a beta blocker to treat her condition. However, these medications make her drowsy and tired, lower her blood pressure, and have led to frequent bouts of lightheadedness and fainting spells. And we also know now from the latest WikiLeaks dump that there's a bed. You know that black van that Hillary Clinton travels around in? The reason it's dark and it has tinted windows, there's a bed in there. So when she's about ready to pass out, they just go in and they throw her on top of the thing and they drive around for a while till she comes to. This is, I know. I mean, this is like a movie, a comedy movie or a thriller movie, or it's just very, very dangerous what we're dealing with here. And yet, people apparently are willing to be sold a bill of goods because she's promising they'll get everything for free. Speaking of the WikiLeaks dump, this is the latest from her minions over at Clinton News Network, and this is Chris Cuomo, the son of the former communist governor of New York and brother of the current communist governor of New York. Chris Cuomo saying that you shouldn't be looking at those WikiLeaks.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us. And in full disclosure, let's take a look at what is in there and what it means.
And we're going to tell you it means nothing. But don't look at it because you'll be breaking the law and you wouldn't want to go to jail now, would you? By the way, when we illegally obtained Trump's tax records, that's okay for us to do that because we're the media. We can get away with it. See? Yeah, we're special. But if you're looking at WikiLeaks, don't tear those tags off your pillows because we know where you live. What kind of a comment is that? You shouldn't be looking at these. You're breaking the law if you do. He's looking at them, and he said, yeah, but, I'm in the media, so I can get away with that. This is so absolutely outlandish that they would even he would make this claim. You're breaking, it's on the internet. Why? What do you mean I can't look at it? Oh, it's breaking the law. Sure. Meanwhile, by the way, we liberals believe that you should be able to possess heroin, cocaine, marijuana. These drug laws are all ridiculous. Yeah, but you're breaking the law. Well, those are bad laws. We on the left, we enjoy having a little smoke now and then, and you shouldn't be able to interfere with us. And we'd like to welcome all of our libertarian friends, too, as well. Vote Hillary. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310. KLIX and newsradio1310.com. What sort of future are we looking at? And is it a future that you really want to be part of? I wish that question would be asked more often. Bill Colley with you on Top Story today on News Radio 1310. KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We've got more on the way. Speaking of media, Colin Kaepernick got his first start of the NFL season yesterday. I want to mention that coming up if we get an opportunity. And media, of course, is all on board with his efforts to besmirch the American flag and the national anthem. Of course, you wouldn't expect anything else. Also coming up in the next hour, Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. So I turned on my television yesterday expecting to see the San Francisco 49ers game, and I admit I had a little bias. They were going to be playing Buffalo, and since that is one of my childhood teams, I wanted to see if the Bills would take the guy's head off during the course of the game. You have a lot of people say, well, I'm boycotting football, or I'm boycotting the 49ers because of him. Well, you got a lot of people tuning in, though, who want to see him get his comeuppance, which in some respects he got yesterday, but you couldn't see the game locally. Who in their right mind is the ding-a-ling at the TV station who made the decision to carry the Rams and Lions? Because, there's a lot of Detroit Lions fans around here. Well, we got somebody who works here who likes the Lions or the Rams. In other words, we could have given you the 49ers who have more fans in the area, or the lightning rod Colin Kaepernick, and attracted a much larger audience and better served our advertisers by delivering that much larger audience. But no, we decided not to. All the more reason you should be advertising in radio, because obviously they're not working to provide you with the maximum audience as an advertiser at your local TV stations. Just wanted to pass that along. And also wanted to mention today, my friend Dr. Eric F. Jones, he practices a holistic, systemic approach to wellness. Well, that's maybe for his multiple patients. He's been doing it for nearly a quarter century with master's and doctoral degrees in marriage and family therapy. Dr. Eric F. Jones. Uses methods of alternative healing such as naturopathy, medicinal herbs, nutrition, sound waves, intellectual and cognitive self-regulation, and napathy to help remedy and manage mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual challenges. He's currently accepting new patients. He has evening and Saturday appointments available. Telephone number 731-7178. And he's on Facebook. Eric F. Jones, PhD, mental health and wellness therapist, and that's Eric with a C. We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com.
Well, Bill, there's a trade agreement, this Trans-Pacific Partnership. You know, when you talked about hemispheric trade and so forth with NAFTA, this would be 5,554 pages, 11 reams of paper, and nobody's read the thing, and yet it was negotiated totally in secret, and it has 5 chapters that have to do with trade, and so all of the farm groups are, you know, well, this is a great deal, but they're ignoring the 24 chapters that have to do with economic political merger. And so this would all fit into this globalization of the elitist. And of course, Obama and Hillary are all for this thing. And Trump's the only one that's really come out forcefully against it. Unfortunately, Trump is fighting back against a losing cause. He needs to get out there again and talk about the real issues that got him where he is in the first place. But
well, in the Washington Times today, his ally Jeff Sessions has a column about why this isn't working. He said that these deals hemorrhage jobs, depress wages, and they balloon the trade deficit. He said what's going on here is you've got some think tanks who convince government to go ahead with these agreements on projections that they can't maintain, and so they assume that the unemployment rate stays at or below 4% for 15 consecutive years. Second, the model assumes a constant income share between capital and labor. So when the shareholders benefit, that somehow laborers will too. He said, and third, and most absurdly, the model assumes our trade deficit will not change from its current level, which it has, obviously. I think it's $367 billion with China right now on average a year.
Yeah, it is. And so, Bill, the bottom line is this thing's a bad deal, but I haven't been able to get a commitment really out of our senators, and it's probably going to be voted on not that far down the road during this lame duck session, the way it sounds.
Follow the money. See who's, putting money in their campaign coffers, right?
Well, I'm sure they are, and it's just, they'll sell their soul for a campaign contribution, and they take an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution, and part of this trade agreement is to basically allow in tremendous amounts of more foreigners to replace American workers.
The governor is going to be leading a trade delegation to China, which likely means he's going to be taking some people from our legislative delegation along with him. In the meantime, there are now I think more people working for Micron Technologies in China than are working in Idaho, where the company was founded. So how is this going to benefit us in the long run?
It isn't. It's all about going down to the lowest common denominator, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, of course, pumps in all that money for Simpson to get him reelected, and he got just token opposition this time, and so we're in the primary. But it's all about money. And these guys will sell their soul. They take an oath to uphold the Constitution. Article 4, Section 4 says they'll protect us against invasion. We're being invaded by these Muslim refugees, and under Hillary and their plans to bring in 1 million of these people. And Hillary admits in the WikiLeaks they can't be vetted. So, they know this is a problem, and yet they're going to allow the destruction of this country. And if we vote for Hillary, we're toast.
Oh, well said. And I thank you for the call. Short break coming up. We've got more on the way. Kelton Hatch joining us after 9 o'clock news this morning from Idaho Fish and Game. And Randy Staples will be along in about 15 minutes from Idaho Weekly Briefing. All ahead on Top Story with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 47 on our way, probably only to about 50 today at 8:30.